open the City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission member meeting, Monday, June 18th, 2018. Jackie, will you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Hart?
Here.
Commissioner Dow?
Here.
Vice Chairman Wasden?
Here.
Chairman Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Masters? Here.
Good, thank you. Okay, the next order of business is the approval of the minutes from our May 21st, 2018 meeting. Do I hear any additions, subtractions, or corrections? Yes, Commissioner Hart.
On item number 3, I thought what we had agreed to, you know, they said, it says we were told there were 24 hours for some, and I thought we had finally come to an agreement that we would listen to anybody that wanted to make presentations at the meeting.
Yeah, it's just
But
a
any documents
Yes.
had to be submitted,
Yeah, the
72
72-hour,
hours
3 business
before.
days before.
and it isn't quite here.
All right.
I think that's currently in the, I thought that was currently in the policy.
Well, that's what I asked, so everybody
And
seems to be able to find it.
No, I think
Did-
Scott said last time
Yeah.
that it was current, because we were asking if we were changing it, and I thought
Yeah.
he said, no, it currently is 70.
Yeah, 72 hours. The question I had was it 72 hours before the meeting or 72 business hours? And they clarified to be 72 minutes,
Or hours.
72 hours prior to the meeting, business hours. Yeah. And,
But
yeah,
that wasn't
In
actually,
case it happened on
but in terms
Friday
of the
or-
discussion that we had,
yeah, yeah, and we agreed, I think everybody agreed that there would be no problem, you know,
Yeah.
we can't control that. If somebody wants to come and verbally protest or discuss an item,
Yeah.
that's fine. It's just if they have any documentation or petitions, those need to be filed. And the staff is going to incorporate that in their notices that they send out on meetings and
Okay.
sign postings, so that we can make sure the public is aware of that 72 or 3-day business limitation on presenting petitions or any other written. Is that clear, Baron?
That was item 3, is that what you said?
yes.
On,
What page is it?
I am,
page numbers.
Well, there's no page numbers on
I think it's discussion items, number 3, and
yeah,
then it's
discussion items.
number 2 in discussion items.
No, the discussion items, clear at the end there.
I'm sorry, number 1 in discussion items.
Can't find that damn thing.
I don't believe in these things, they shouldn't go in the minutes. They put the staff report.
Yeah, discussion on, item number 3, discussion items. It's on the last page, or next to last page. Informational reports, just before information, discussion items.
We should number the pages.
Yes,
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
yeah.
So it was item number 3, though. Oh, discussion item, okay.
Yeah.
I don't even see
So
that.
is there anything that needs to be changed on that, or is
Am I
it,
in the right meeting?
are we leaving it? in?
Well, I think we want to add, and just make clear that this applies to written petitions and materials to be handed in, that verbally they can come before the commission. That's the right of any citizen to come and
We
discuss
discussed
it.
it and agreed, we discussed it and agreed that we would stay with it.
Yeah, and stay with that
With
policy that
72
we've
hours.
had in place, and I think you might make an addition to the verbiage there, to that effect, that we're talking written submissions only, not verbal.
That's correct, yeah.
You want to
This
make
is-
sure we got it all.
This is, how is that? So this is going to apply to written petitions and materials?
Any documents that they
Any
would submit.
documents?
Yeah.
The policy is going to remain the same, however, the public can still come and make comments.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Everybody, that sound good to everybody?
That's good.
Clear? Okay, I'll take a motion Vice Chairman?
I move we approve the minutes of the May 21st, 2018 meeting with the additions.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion by our Vice Chairman Wasden and a second by Commissioner Norwood to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. The next item is call to the public, and I don't have any slips, and Phil's shaking his head, so we'll just go ahead and skip that section. Move on to old business, we have none. New business, we have two items, or a number of items, but our first two items, I just want to, for the education of our two new members, and reminder of the rest of us, that these two items, the only item up for discussion is extension of the modification, the zoning, and on one case, in the conditional use permit on the other. They've all been approved previously. The design's been approved, the project, the viability, of the project. So all we're looking tonight is the applicant make a case for extension, further extension? And then secondly, how long of extension do we want to grant them before it expires? The new state law says that once it expires, they have an administrative hearing. The applicant can come back before us and discuss extensions, and we can either approve it or dis, but it's strictly limited to that one item on these. So number one is PCU 16004, MOD, TERRA BENI A, Jim Paget.
Sure, thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. As you stated, this is an administrative action for an extension of time for the TERRA BENI farm project on Willard, just off of Willard Road, up by the airport. Last time, a couple times we've been here, there's just been delays with getting water and the effluent. That now is taken care of. The water line is under the street, and so now they're working on the final grading and irrigation that's going into the system, or into the farm. So nothing changes as far as the location, the plans, the project overall, with the exception of asking for another 6 months. Bernadette Selna, the applicant, is here this evening. If you have any questions for her regarding the timing of when we might start seeing things happen sooner. And so staff is recommending 6 months. If you felt anything different than that,
Okay.
your privilege.
Any questions, starting with Commissioner Hart? How about Jim? Do you have any questions to?
I'm not Jim.
No, I know that, Commissioner Hart. Do you have any questions of Jim?
I'm just curious, when is it gonna get going?
Yeah, well,
I think when the applicant is up here,
we'll talk to them
we'll
about
sort of
that.
get us some
Okay,
timing.
yeah.
My only question is, we're seeing progress, right? We're moving in that direction?
Yes, we are moving in that direction.
All right.
Any questions? Yes.
Jim, technically, can you describe exactly what's happened now with pipes and water and the disposition of the town relative to turning on the faucets? And just give us a precise detail, if you can, whatever you can on this issue,
Okay.
because it seems as if it's a moving target.
The longest delay was in getting the effluent line run under Willard.
So it's
To-
under Willard now?
Correct, it's under
Okay.
Willard now. It is connected, and I think that did happen shortly after the last 6-month extension of time. So now it's just a matter of them connecting to that, doing their final irrigation, final site prep, and in order to seed and plant the materials that hopefully they'll sell, like they said, either at the farmers markets, or there will be some activity there on site for sales to happen there on site at the farm. I don't know if that answered specifically your question of the water.
Okay, so everything is there.
Everything is there.
Everything
yes.
is all set. All that has to
Correct.
happen now is that the farm itself has to hook up to the pipe
And
and
plant the seeds.
turn on the water.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find out then why that hasn't happened.
Yeah, we'll talk to the applicant about
We'll
that.
talk to the applicant. I have a question. I don't know if it's related, I don't know if I should ask this question or not, but just so that I can understand about gray water. There's no bacteria content of gray water?
The way
No
that they
California, do they test
treated
the water?
it doesn't become potable, as I understand it, you know, as far as drinkable, but it is able to be used for irrigation.
Does anyone test the water, gray water, when it's being used and spread over food in a farm situation?
That's a question I'd have to get back.
I mean,
To you
maybe you
on.
don't know the
I
answer,
don't-
but it's
Yeah.
something that burns in my mind. I mean, you have gray water, you hear about lettuce and stuff being contaminated with E. coli, and, you know, it happens all the time in the United States. I was just wondering if there's a relationship
well-
between.
The applicant may be able to answer that question.
I'll throw in that water that comes out, which is not just gray water, it's used for a lot of different things that you can, construction, but the water that comes out of the canal,
Is worse?
yes.
Yes, I would rather have this water than canal water, yes. Commissioner Mansard, any questions of Jim? Okay. Jim, and we'll have the applicant that see is here, and maybe she can tell us a little bit about what's going on up there exactly now.
I am Bernadette Salna.
Yes.
And I'm the applicant for that's TERRA Beni. And I noticed an I, just my mistake, first time. Bene should be spelled B-E-N-E.
Yes.
Sorry. So it was my typo from the beginning, and that's probably where this was picked up. Questions regarding the water, along with what you said, when I spoke with people at the wastewater treatment center, your center, they said that the water that comes from you is too clean to go into the Verde. The people at the Verde were saying, oh, wow, your water's too clean, you gotta do something about it. So I don't, this was about 6, 8 months ago. So I don't know what that means, but I'm not worried about it. So
Yeah.
that it has been graded for irrigation use for crops, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there's been engineering done for that.
There's a lot of study, a lot of work, a lot of indication that the water is safe.
Okay,
And as a matter of fact, I use it, I go and I put it in a truck and take it to
okay.
my house and use it.
So
in irrigation.
tell us exactly where you're at now and what you're gonna be doing next 6
We
months.
put the sleeve, the sleeve runs now across from the east to the west side of Willard. And we have the pipe from Willard to our tank. And then from the west side of Willard, it ends at that point. We're getting the irrigation we're gonna do the irrigation system on the larger parcel, which is on the east side first.
Right,
And then, so we're putting in that system, and then we'll run the pipe from the west side of Willard to connect up to the reclaimed water.
okay.
So that's where we have.
That'll be
the
your
pipe
last
set.
phase on the east
That-
side.
Yes, and so, getting the irrigation, has taken more time, and then we took the land, the soil from the airport project, and now we're in the process of straining that, and that's one of the, there was some stuff in there that we were pulling out that is would not be good for a farm,
Yeah,
and so we're straining that, and that's taking time.
yes, okay. I think one of the problems, Commissioner, this is not the typical building project kind of thing. It's sort of staged out, and to me anyway, and it's, you know, they had to wait for the city to get the water, and now they can do the irrigation. Because I was looking back at your time, you were gonna put this back clear in January of 16, you know, so I think they were very optimistic of where they were gonna go. It's sort of hard to me, is to try to put a timeline on this thing, because it just sort of goes on, yeah, we do want to, you've really basically met the conditions that now are just
It's
doing
just
a little
we
bit
have
of
to do it.
construction of your irrigation system, planting
Yeah.
your crops. It just doesn't fit in a time mold, so I'm having some struggle with that. Commissioner Hart, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Well, basically, it's just the timing. It's someplace that I go by fairly frequently, and I saw what looked like the finished grading done quite a bit ago, and then everything just seems to be sitting there going nowhere.
The grading that was done was the soil that was, or the dirt that was brought in from the airport project was brought onto our property. And then from that, the movement of the land now is we're straining that, because there was a word for it, and I don't remember what he called it. But there were things in this, like concrete blocks, and there was stuff in there that we needed to pull out. And so we're straining that dirt now. We've got probably, I would say, a quarter of it strained. We're pulling that out, and then we'll level that out back again. So there's no new grading other than pulling the dirt out and then replacing, pulling the bad things out and then replacing, releveling it. So
Okay.
that's what takes time. I don't, does that answer your question?
I think, yeah, it's just because, like I said, it's someplace that I drive by, and I'm interested in.
Oh, okay, and it seems like it's taking
And
forever,
I'm
believe
just
me,
going,
I
I
know.
want to see some plants come out of the ground.
Tell me about it. I agree.
Wow.
Thank you, yes.
Commissioner Dow?
No, sir.
Is 6 months long enough for you? I know you've been here several times, and I think it's a great project, and there are limitations that are above and beyond what you can do, and I understand that. So I think it's such a great project, and I know last time you were anticipating things would work out, so I know there's things that are out of your control. Is 6 months long enough for you, or would 12 months be better?
12 months would be, it would take a lot of the pressure off to where we could worry more about things, other things, not having to worry about
Yeah.
coming back. And don't want to waste your time either. And to me, it's not a waste of time, it's things that we have to do.
Yeah.
So if you could do 12 months, that would be greatly appreciated.
We might even do 13 months.
Oh, you know what? 13 is my brother's favorite number.
Commissioner Norwood?
I have no questions.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
All right. Yeah, that's my concern, because it takes staff time, it takes our time, it takes your time. I agree with Vice Chairman that, this is a great project. I personally think you really have met the basic condition. You are committed to doing this, you are going through, it's going to be an agriculture project. It just doesn't fit the typical timeline mold we have for building a store or an office building or apartment, so it's hard to get a handle, and I don't have any other questions, and we'll close the floor to the public, and I think we've asked all the questions there, so this will be strictly a discussion of ours between us, but then we'll do a vote. Commissioner Hart, what's your thoughts on this extension and time?
I would vote for the 6th. I
Okay,
would support the 6th.
okay. Okay, Commissioner Dowell.
I'd support 12.
That's fine.
Commissioner,
I have no comments.
okay.
I'd go with 12.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think we just need to extend this out, because time you put in your crops, and then you're gonna do an orchard on the other side, so it's gonna take you some time, and that way we just smooth out this project a lot. So with that, Vice Chairman, I'll entertain a motion.
I recommend for approval PCU-16-004-mod, time extension for TERRA Beni. I probably didn't say that right. With the following stipulation, the project is developed in conformance with the site plan submitted January 12, 2016, with the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission on January 25, 2016. 2, that the project conforms to the Code Review Board's comments dated December 24, 2015. 3, parking will be reviewed and approved by staff. 4, dust control will be required over the life of the project. Applicant will submit dust control plan to staff for approval. 5, a lighting plan will need to be submitted and approved by staff prior to installation of any lighting structures. All lighting must meet dark skies requirements and ordinance requirements. 6, all structures will need building permits and approval. 7, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued by the timeframe specified. And 8, the conditional use permit would be for a 12-month period.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
12 months.
12 months. Okay. Commissioner Hart, or Dowell seconded that motion, and Vice Chairman made it. And we have a unanimous vote for approval for a 12-month extension. Thank you very much for coming in. All
Good luck.
righty. Good luck. Keep working hard. Okay, on to the next item. PCU 17003 and DR 17003. MOD extension of time for the new Circle K at Mingus and Main Street. Jim, it's all yours.
Thank you, and once again, this is also an extension of time for the proposed Circle K project. A couple of the main issues that they've been having is getting clear title on the properties that they're compiling to make the project complete, as well as a significant amount of underground utilities, design, relocation, in order to make the project happen. So with those two things specifically, I think the most time consuming was the real estate issue that they had and still working on so that they can proceed with the project. We are recommending, whatever time frame you feel appropriate. Tracy Rodell with Land Development Consultants is also here as the applicant for the project.
Okay. Yeah, Jim, that question I had, I think I talked to you on the phone about, was there was some comment about design changes, and that has to do just strictly with the underground utilities. It has nothing to do about above ground design or
There's
to the
nothing
plans.
above ground that's going to be different. Like,
we've already
it was
approved.
before, the location, the design, the sign,
Yeah. So we're just
the
looking
layout.
again, an extension of time
Correct.
and for them to get this underway and
Right.
go forward with it. All right. Any questions of Jim?
I have no questions.
Yes, sir.
Jim?
How much time is being requested? Additional time now?
We've sort of left that up to you, I think.
There's a 12-month, I think.
12 months is, the condition is 12 months for them to apply for a building permit. Not 12 months to actually necessarily begin construction, but it's 12 months to apply for a building permit is the way that the original approval was read a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if you follow that same format, then another 12 months for the extension.
And what does the applicant think is
Well,
going to happen in the
well-
next 12 months?
Well, we'll ask the applicant then.
We'll let her answer that when she
Okay.
comes up.
Yeah. Commissioners, any
I reserve
questions?
my question for the
Okay.
applicant.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Jim. We're all set. Your name, please.
Good evening. Tracy Rodell with Land Development Consultants, here representing Circle K.
All right. Would you go through and just sort of tell us what's been going on and some of the problems you faced and what's caused the delays?
The main reason to request this extension is they are unable to close escrow on a parcel due to some pretty substantial title issues that the seller is working to get resolved. I do know that they are currently planning on closing on the property towards the end of next month, assuming these title issues have been resolved. Once those issues are resolved and they're able to close escrow, we of course will start with the lot combination process and alley abandonment, right-of-way dedications. But the intent is the site planning and design reviews all remaining the same. So,
Okay. Yeah, and this, how many parcels were involved in this originally? I think there's 6 or 7,
there's like 5 or 6.
5 or 6, plus you have an abandonment of an alley going
Correct.
east and west through the middle of the property.
And a
that
bunch of utilities. that
legally
run
has to
through
be
there.
done once you get title, yes.
Right, we can't move forward with anything until they actually own and are able to
Yes,
assemble all the
right.
parcels.
Okay.
So, and the assumption is this title issue is going to be resolved prior to the end of next month so that they are able to close escrow.
Okay. And what kind of time frame do you think to get a building permit then?
I would say with everything that needs to take place, 12 months.
Okay, okay.
And it's only one piece of property under question as far as title?
Correct.
Just one?
Yeah, but that's all they need. Because this project doesn't work with even one of them, and I've been in the title business for
Right.
many years, and that's a serious problem. It's sometimes very hard to overcome, so.
It was something that, you know, when they were originally scheduled to close escrow, and they always run their title commitments to make sure everything's
Right.
clear, something popped up that wasn't on there originally,
Right.
so.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
Commissioner
No questions.
Hart? Any further questions?
So you think it's going to happen? You're
Oh,
gonna
the
have
project, yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Commissioner?
Questions?
Yeah, that's, you know, when we get that resolved, and you're still committed to doing the building and projects and going through with it.
It'll look very similar if any of you have been to the store that just opened in Camp Verde.
Yeah, very good. All right. I don't, with that, fine, I don't think there's any other questions. Thank you very much for coming down,
Thank you.
and we'll close the floor to the public and discussion and your thoughts on this extension for 12 months.
I understand their problems. I've seen this.
Excuse me?
I've seen this happen to people before.
Yes, yes.
So I understand. I think it's reasonable.
Yes. Mr. Dow?
I think it's reasonable.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable?
Yeah, well, yeah, time you get everything put together in your plans and hit the ground, that's good. So, Vice Chairman, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve PCU 17-003 and DR 17-003 mod extension of time with the following stipulations. PCU stipulations. 1, the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the June 19, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. 2, the project conforms to code review comments dated January 31st, 2017, and follow-up review comments from Planning and Zoning, Engineering and Fire Department. 3, that the project conforms to the design and review requirements, which will be approved by a separate motion. 4, the applicant will work with the city engineer regarding abandonment of the 20-foot wide alley right-of-way that now bisects the property, subject property east to west. 5, building permit shall be applied for by 12 months from the date of approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, or conditional use permit shall be subject to revocation procedures. DR stipulations. 1, that the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the June 19, 2017 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission with the exception of the freestanding sign. 2, that the project conforms to the Code Review Board comments dated January 31st, 2017, and follow-up review comments from Planning, Engineering, and Fire Departments. 3, buffering and screening shall be provided as shown on the landscape plan and with low masonry walls and plant materials, including trees and shrubs along North 15th Street across from residential uses. Low screening walls integrating into landscape strips along street shall have a minimum 4-course decorative block wall, approximately 34 inches in height minimum. 4, building and canopy signs will be submitted through separate sign permits. Applications shall be in compliance with the allowable size for a project. 5, approval of the freestanding signs will require approval from Planning and Zoning Commission at a future meeting. 6, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of design and review conditions shall be issued prior to the certificate of occupancy. And I'd add 7, that the conditional use permit be extended for 12 months.
Okay. Jackie got that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Hart seconds it, that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved? Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Okay. The next, we have one item that was pulled from the agenda. Number 3, 18018-004. So we'll go on to item 4, ZO 18005, amendment to section 404, general provisions, detached accessory buildings, and Article 2, definitions of corner lots. Baron, are you
I'll be doing this.
already?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, next 4 items are just the necessity came from working with the customers and applicants that we realize our zoning ordinance does not answer some of these questions. So things are changing since the ordinance was adopted. So these are minor changes we are adding or deleting to make our lives and applicants' lives easier. So I'll go with the first one. This is for the accessory use in certain lots, and mainly corner lots. Our zoning ordinance does not differentiate between the lots and corner lots, so you will see, which is so common in other cities also, that you see sometimes it's a corner lot that their accessory use in the other side, but other side happens to be a street, so you see their shed from the other side, but technically they have a front yard, so they treat this side as a rear or side, but it doesn't look pretty good. So we are adding some sentences there that it will clarify, and one of them is on the definitions. It says, on corner lots, no accessory structures shall be placed in a side or rear yard abutting a street frontage. So that way, just simple one sentence will make it clear. So this whole section is about this one, corner lots and accessory use on the corner lots. Any questions?
Any questions, Commissioner Hart?
No.
Any questions, Sarah?
This is just to help me process this better. So when it says, no accessory building shall be placed in the rear yard abutting a street frontage, they can still put it, like say the road was it was abutting the south side, they could still put a building on the north side of their backyard, correct?
Yes, so with this one, we will determine the rear yard clearly. So even though it is street side, they might be treating that street side as a back or side yard. So with this definition, with adding this, we will determine exactly where the rear yard, so they would be placing it. Instead of there, they would be placing in the rear.
Okay, so it doesn't eliminate a building
No.
completely in the backyard?
No.
Just something that be on the
Right.
street? Okay. That was just for my processing.
Right.
You're basically standardizing the setbacks from the street,
Exactly.
regardless if it's a corner, yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. Yeah, we've seen some of that thing in
Yeah.
town. You've seen where people have done that.
Yeah,
Commissioner Orr, any questions of Baron?
no questions.
No question.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Vice Chairman, I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the City Council modification of this zoning ordinance as presented.
I recommend that we recommend approval and recommendation to the City Council of ZO-18-005, amendments to Section 404, General Provisions, Detached Accessory Buildings, and Article 2, Definition Corner Lots, with as outlined and presented to us in the documentation.
Okay, that meet your needs. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second from Commissioner Norwood. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously carried. Okay, next item, ZO 18006, Amendment Section 417, MH Zone, Manufactured Homes.
Again, in 2006, city adopted an ordinance for the manufactured home zones. And The problem with that was we were putting all these development standards with that ordinance, yet most of the manufactured home zones were existing. So now they are all non-conforming uses, but now they would like to add some garage, carport, and whatever they would like to do to their property, or ordinance does not allow it. So with these, just one word, a carport in one area and taking another carport roofs, deleting that and adding to the main structure of the garage. So simple adds and deletions, adding and deleting, will make the property owners to be able to add carport or garage to their mobile units. So again, this is more like housekeeping, because we are getting all these applications, but ordinance does not allow. This way, we will be able to work with them.
Okay, any questions, Baron, on this one?
I have some questions that I want to, I'm having difficult with the idea that these setbacks are being defined from the sidewalk and not from lot lines.
Property lines. It should be.
Yeah, typically, you're defining things in terms of the property line. Now, in manufactured homes, sometimes you own the property, sometimes you don't. But it still seems like that's the standard for defining, because what happens if there's no sidewalk?
Right.
I mean, I know places where there's no sidewalk.
Right.
So this doesn't make
There's
any
a gutter,
sense.
yeah, or maybe a gutter at best.
Right.
Yeah, and so it should either be edge of street, lot line, lot property line, something like that. I think the verbiage needs to be fixed.
All right,
Or from the right of way.
Or from, well, that right of way usually is where your property line is.
yeah.
Well, unless there's an easement, I mean, a utility.
Unless there's an easement.
Right, so,
Right,
But typically, your right of way line in the front of your property, that's usually your front property line.
that's basically been my understanding of the regular residential. I know setbacks in my house are from my property line.
Right.
We don't have sidewalks on Palo Verde Street, so,
how about just saying it from the street, from the edge of the street? I mean,
well, from the
It has to
property
be
line is very
property line,
definitive, because
most
you don't know where the
I
street
think
is.
it should be defined in terms of property lines.
Yes, that's the only definitive thing I see.
Because that's how your property is legally defined.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think I agree with that, because if you're in a manufactured home community, number one, in most of these communities, people don't own the property, and you really don't know where the property line is.
Well, this is for mobile home subdivisions. Subdivisions, they own the lot. This is not a mobile home park. This is a mobile home subdivision.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there is a difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
We're talking about subdivisions now where the property, they own the mobile and the lot.
Okay, so this is one of the conditions. So I think even more so, I think it's important that we define it in terms of where their property
Right,
line
because
is.
they may or may not. Do they require sidewalks in manufactured home subdivisions? I don't know.
No.
Anywhere that's, so
We can.
yeah, I just change those little words too. Yeah,
Well, and just to clarify, this does say
It says
manufactured home parks and
Right.
subdivisions,
Yeah.
so it says
Right.
both.
That's, so it's both, that's what I read, so.
Well, still property line or lot line, so we can change it,
Lot line.
right?
What I see is property, oh yeah, okay. Well, one of them says for manufactured home subdivision, and then there's E, which is manufactured home parks.
yeah. Are we talking parks and subdivision or just subdivision? Because this is a change to property development standard for manufactured home subdivisions. It doesn't say anything about parks. And that
It
is a
does in the
different
background,
animal.
though.
Huh?
It mentions
Well,
it in the background.
yeah, but you look at what she's amending, and that's subdivisions only.
Oh, well.
I think parks are a different animal.
But if we say property line or lot line, I think it would cover that.
But
So,
on a manufactured home park, there's no lot lines. Your lot line goes around
There's a
the
reason.
subdivision, there's no
Not fair.
defined
The
inside,
lot line,
Not necessarily so.
you know,
more distinction of ownership.
Yeah.
Lot line.
yeah.
Scott is not here to answer. He worked on these things, but I'm sure there's a reason why he put it that way, so. So if you leave us the option that we will correct that if it needs to be, but I'm thinking that there's a reason that's why he put it that way, from the sidewalk.
Okay, then I see, yeah, E is the parks, okay. That's a 10-foot from home, including carport, yeah, 20-foot from garage. Yeah, and there's no property line on the park.
Well, just to clarify.
Yeah.
The sidewalk is already in it, correct? Is
Right,
already in the
it's-
code? So the sidewalk isn't even part of the discussion.
Yes, it is from the back of the sidewalk to the main structure of the garage. That's the new one. Last sentence is the
Yeah.
new one.
Yeah,
You're right, sidewalk is already in there.
Yeah, but that
Yeah,
could be
so the
amended.
We are
sidewalk.
not discussing that,
Right, so the sidewalk's already in the code.
right.
But what happens if they don't have a sidewalk?
Well, I agree with that,
But
but,
it is not,
but,
We could change that though, too, that verbiage, that's up to us to recommend a
right,
change.
but tonight, that's not the subject. We are adding to the main structure of the garage.
I would say
Redo it.
Okay. Okay. So,
I still have the same question.
yeah, well, they can amend that and come back
Because
to us.
this is a pretty vague definition in it. Because again, I tried to look up sidewalk, there was no definition. It's not 3 foot wide, it's not 4 foot wide, there's no definition of where the sidewalk begins
Right.
and ends on a piece of property. So this could be vaguely anywhere.
yeah, and I know that the city has sidewalks that abut up to the curb, and then there's some sidewalks in this community that are set off a
Yeah.
foot and a half off the curb, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that,
Maybe we need to table this and come back and include that definitive item.
If I may, I think we should go forward with this because sidewalk portion is not part of what we
All right, but
brought
I'm-
you.
what we're-
We can change that later if it is necessary. That would give
All right,
Scott
will you
to
come back
defend
with
it.
us on that change too later?
Sure,
All
yeah,
right,
let Scott
All right,
work on it and then
All right.
come back.
all right.
Still got some more questions.
Yes, yes, Commissioner Hart.
What's the intent of this? Later on, there's a definition that says that the driveway has to be 20 feet from, again, from the sidewalk. Is the intent for this that if the person meets the 20-foot setback from the sidewalk or whatever, that if they've got a 20-foot setback, they can have a 20-foot drive, and 10 foot of that can be carport? Is that the intent of what you're trying to describe here?
Before anything else, I'm gonna guess, that's why I always encourage you guys to ask these questions to the project planner when you have questions. Right now, I'm gonna answer for Scott, but he knows the details. So if you ask him these questions, he would be able to answer probably to you directly. But my general experience with that, there are some mobile home subdivisions in the town, the way they design, it is so difficult to put carport or garages right now, but people want that, they need that. So it is just, we are caught in between. The rule says no, but needs are there. So we are just, this is a quick fix to make them be able to put the garage, but you still have to meet that distance.
Okay. That applies, that 10-foot applies just to parks, not to subdivisions. Subdivisions stay at 20 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
And the park can go, you could add a carport out in front.
D is
of
the
10 feet.
subdivision, E is the mobile home
Yeah.
parks.
And one of those is not only to accommodate the car, but aesthetically, years ago, we had developers putting carports right off from the sidewalk, and the visual effect, you can go down through some of the neighborhoods.
Plus
Right.
parking
So
on the
it's-
sidewalk
Yeah,
and,
so
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why the 20-foot in there, but,
Yeah, if you're in a park, 'cause a lot of those mobile homes are pretty close up to
Push them back to give a
Push
little
'em
bit
back,
more
yeah, yeah.
aesthetic for the
Yeah.
project, so.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions for Baron on this? For the way it sets, and I think she knows our wishes, but maybe we need to clarify from sidewalk or property line to come back and they can bring us another amendment to that effect.
Well, I think we need some more accurate language.
Yeah, well, she can bring that back to us.
Yes.
In the meantime, we can get these,
For the sidewalk?
we
you
can
mean?
get these, they can live with this
Sidewalk.
right now. And,
Well, where the, you know, I think the definition has to get rid of sidewalk and define it in terms of lot line or right-of-way.
She's gonna come back with Scott.
She'll come back with
who's
that.
Over
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
because that's not part of, it's a valid point, but that's
Yeah.
not part of
This.
what we're doing, and we can't do that. So we can approve what's here with the understanding, we could even put it in as a stipulation that Scott reports back on and clarifying that for
Right.
us.
yeah, we can entertain a second motion. Okay, I think that'd be a good idea. We can make that a stipulation of our recommendation that we come back.
That we
A stipulation
we
to
come back with
clarify
some more
the measurement.
clearer language.
Clearer language with regard to property line or,
Yeah, from where the setback
yeah, the
starts.
setback starts, yes, so we could,
But I want to make sure that I understand, so when you put we are going to bring it back to your sidewalk portion.
yeah.
But are you,
we're gonna recommend approval.
Council or not?
Ye-
When
Yeah,
you move
yes,
forward?
yes, but we want to report back from you or Scott when he's back at a future meeting to define, to see if this is, so he can understand it, to see if it is
Right.
clarification that we should be
So
addressing.
what I'm saying, if we are not going to go forward with this tonight, then we might as well table it. Because what we do is, after we take it to council, that's a process for the staff. So that's why I was saying, if you pass this, we'll approve this portion, and then we'll come back for the sidewalk portion later on. That
Right.
will be another item.
as an understanding.
But if you are
That's a
putting it stipulation that it's going to affect this one, you might as well
The
table the whole thing.
stipulation's not for the council, it's what we're saying the same thing, it's for you to make sure you come back with Scott.
That's
and
gonna be a
clarify.
verbal
Fine.
Yeah.
stipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be part of the motion to recommend.
Yeah.
Okay. Vice Chairman, I'll let you make a recommendation.
I move that we approve for recommendation to City Council ZO-18-006 amendments to Section 417 MH Zone Manufactured Home as outlined, with the changes outlined.
Okay, do I
by
have a
staff.
second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
One nay, Commissioner Hart is opposed to the approval. Otherwise, we're all yays. So recommendation is approved to go forward as written to the council. And next month, we want to hear back from Scott, and do we need to amend it further? Okay, the next item on the agenda is ZO 188-008. Amendments to Section 410, General Agriculture, 411 AR 43, Agriculture Residential, 423 CF, Community Facilities, and 425 AR 17. Baron, would you?
Again, this is one of the items that staff has been getting applications or inquiries and RV parks in the city. But in the ordinance, zoning ordinance, there is no area addresses that. Campground is addressed, but there is no RV parks. So we did some study, and again, Scott was a project manager on this one. So we went with the other cities and then decided that campgrounds, wherever they are allowed in the city, RV parks can be going to those areas also. So what we did in certain areas, we added RV park in some zones, and wherever there was campground, we added also RV park. Only in CF zone, there wasn't any, and that CF zone is, commercial facility is pre-open zone. Anything can go. So what we did there in that allowed uses, permitted uses, we added RV park instead of just what it can go. So slowly we are shaping up that CF zone also. We also added the definition of recreational vehicle park to the zoning ordinance.
Right. So
Again,
yeah.
this was not addressed in the zoning ordinance, so we are adding it to the.
And then these are just, but each one of them is conditional use permit
Correct.
only. It's not in the
Correct.
permitted uses, just as a conditional use permit. So they'll have to come before us for approval of their conditional use permit, if they want to put an RV park in these
You will
districts.
review.
It's like they would a campground or
Correct.
anything else. Okay, Commissioner Hart, any questions of Darren on this one? No. Mr. Devlin?
Do we know currently what the Camelot RV park is zoned for?
Pardon?
Do we know what Camelot RV park is currently zoned?
It's commercial, right there.
So that one's commercial. And Dead Horses, I know it's
That's-
a park, but
Yeah.
is that still zoned?
That's not in the city, so,
Dead Horse isn't in the city?
It's state.
well, not in city zoning.
Yeah, so it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in the state, yeah. Mr. Vice Chairman?
No.
Mr.
Yeah, I have a question, Bern. Could you give, is there any examples of property that's vacant now that, this use could be approved for? Can you give me an example, of some properties where one could put an RV park that's, I'm trying to wrap my head, we're gonna add, we can add RV parks to these different areas, but I'd just like to have an example or several examples of some property where these could be, or where people are coming in and asking about this, that they want to put an RV park.
Probably the largest one in the city would be the fairgrounds is is zone CF, community facility. There's an area up around where the Catholic Church is located, and that is CF zone also. Within the city, there's a lot of other larger parcel, AR, agricultural residential. But as far as the CF zone, the fairgrounds and up by the
All right, let
Catholic
me ask
Church
the
are the
question this
largest.
way. The farm on Willard Street that we just talked about earlier, would that qualify for an RV park?
Where is it?
Where the farm is? Where Benny,
Oh, on Willard.
on Willard, Benny,
Oh,
Benny,
oh, yeah.
TERRA Beni. Would that property qualify for an RV park?
Well, just-
Well, we don't know any particular, right now, I don't have the map in front of me, I don't know. But I'll just tell you that there was one proposal, it was an I2 zone around airport, that was not allowed. So, so case by case, we go, I don't know which one would be allowed, but we know which ones are not allowed. So it was the, proximity to the airport and it's being industrial, it didn't work out. So they came with the plans and everything. But so by adding these things, we will have the opportunity to review them if it works in that zone or not.
Right. As long as we can.
Yeah, we will.
So to
Throw
answer
out
your
the-
question on Terra
Oh, sorry,
Beni,
Jim.
excuse me, Terra Beni
We
is zoned
cannot talk about-
agricultural.
We cannot talk about
residential.
other projects.
I was just gonna throw out,
I missed what you said, though.
It is zoned agricultural residential, so that would be one of the,
So somebody
With
could
a
have come
conditional
in
use
and
permit.
wanted,
Yeah, with a
but
conditional.
would have had to
stuff.
gone through an approval process. It would have to be approved by the zoning, planning and zoning.
Sure,
Correct.
conditional use.
yeah, just because it's there doesn't mean, over in
Yeah.
Clarkdale's a good example. If you've seen the RV park over there that they've just put in.
Right, yeah, well, that's
So-
in the middle of nowhere over there, right?
Well, yeah.
not really.
But not really.
Not really.
There were plans, there were,
Right along on the old,
yeah. So there were different plans set up for that, so it still has to come before us. So
Yeah.
just because it's in here doesn't mean that somebody can
And different cities handle it differently, and Clarkdale is allowing in their commercial zone. So we found out that way, so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions,
It didn't answer.
concerns?
I guess.
Yeah, again, they have to come before us. You know, if it doesn't fit in, number one, I think staff's gonna probably give it a real hard look, you know, before they even get down the road, like that industrial area. We never even saw that, so, you know, it may never even get to us, and I think we'd be, got a critical eye as to where we'd want these installed on these type of zones. Some of that state land out there too, I think, south of us on 260 is some, that has never, these agricultural zones are general zones. Actually, that's the most basic zoning there is. And it's not it means the property hasn't been zoned in the city to commercial or residential or multifamily. It's just sitting out there, and once it starts developing, then they'll be in for rezoning and reclassification, and we have a good chance to look at that. And, I have every confidence that we'd have a real critical eye as to what would be approved for an RV park. I know I would, and I have confidence in our commission here that, you know, nobody's going to just go in there and slap one in anywhere they want to go. But it does clear up things. If you're going to put a campground in, I would think, and we would allow a campground, I don't know why we wouldn't allow an RV park. That's a campground with RVs in it, you know, and as opposed to just tents going up, so, okay. With any further discussion, Vice Chairman, I'll entertain a motion, sir, please.
I recommend we approve for recommendation to City Council ZO 18-008 amendments to sections 410 GA, General Agriculture, 411 AR 43, Agricultural Residential, 423 CF, Community Facility, and 425 AR-70, Agricultural Residential, as outlined by staff.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
Seconding, I guess.
Commissioner Arwood seconds that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimously carried. On to the next one, ZO 18-009, amendment to section 404-8, general provisions. Text amendment changing to restrict overall building height of structure within the city with or without a conditional use permit, and some renumbering items. I have a question to even to start out, so you can tell me while you're making your presentation. What's a 2.5-story building?
It might, for example, you had that infill project, that was.
That was a 3-story building, we
Well,
approved.
yeah,
I mean, what's a 2.5-story building? For midgets on the top floor?
No, it is that technically it is considered 2.5, but it can be, I don't know, different, maybe basement and,
Which, there's no examples in the city of
Well,
Cottonwood that I know of that's ever
it
been
doesn't
done.
have to be here, but it's technical definitions. So here, 2.5 or 35 feet.
All right, but we
So-
don't, yeah, but to me, that didn't make sense for that development. We approved it as a 3-story, 35-foot.
Right.
And I think we're talking about amendments here. We should be looking at that as well. We're also,
But from architecture part, it means something to somebody else, even though we might not have any example. So we keep it broad like that in case it might
All right, but-
apply to someone.
yeah, but for our town, our city,
We
you're-
don't know, it might come
all
somewhere
right.
later
But
on.
if 2.5 stories would still fit in with a 3-story, it's what I'm saying. Most things are going to be built for 3-story. People are not going to recess most buildings in Cottonwood by half-story, like some apartment houses in Phoenix, for example, to go, so to me, it just makes sense to go ahead and do 3 stories, but it would still have 35 minutes. So anyway, yes,
Well, usually for a 2.5-story, if you're looking at residential, what it means is that the
Yeah.
next story isn't complete, so it'll be a half.
yeah.
So that's kind of what, when they say a half, they don't really mean that it's half in size, they just mean that it's, you know, this would
The
be.
roof
full.
line is half.
It's just half of the building, so.
So it's
like-
basically a 2-story building still.
Basically, it's 2-story, but except for this part's gone.
That's
So-
exactly what we did in Phil project. It
Yeah,
was
that's
2, we say 3, but front is not built, back was, so it's like a terrace. It's used like a
Well,
terrace.
we approved a three-story building there. And that third story, it does have a third story, and we did make that amendment to in our permit for that. So I'm just thinking it'd be better for us for Cottonwood. I can understand it in a lot of cities, but it just didn't make any sense. But anyway, I'm sorry, Baron, go ahead. I apologize.
All I'm gonna say this is product of several departments, including the legal department. Again, we had a project, and fire department had some issues with that
Yes.
proposal. This is where it is coming from. So what with the changes, deletions, additions, what we are adding is, or what we came up with, manufactured home zoning district will have 2 stories or 20 feet high. That will not change. Within all other districts in the city except PAD and CF zones, the maximum building height will be 2.5 stories, but not to exceed 35, except under conditional use permit. And we are adding these sections. I want to read these to make sure that we all develop with fire department and legal department, this one. Maximum building height, except within an approved plan area development or by conditional use permit, no building in any zoning district shall exceed 2.5 stories or 35 feet in height. B, no building in the MH zone, mobile home, shall exceed 2 stories or 25 feet in height. C, notwithstanding any other provision of this subsection or any uniform code adopted by the city, any building permitted to exceed 3 stories or 40 feet in height, whether by conditional use permit or as part of an approved plan area development, shall be built entirely with non-combustible materials as approved by the city's fire chief and/or fire marshal.
My concern is typically you're going to build a 3-story building, a 2-story or 3-story building. We had that downtown. So they had to apply for a conditional use permit to get that exception for us to go to 2.5. So we required an extra step in there to get, other than just design review, we had to give them a conditional use permit on top of that, which to me just doesn't make any sense. Because down here in C, you are saying 3 stories or 40 feet because of the fire problems in fire prevention, which makes sense. So why not change A to say 3 stories as well, but still with the 35-foot minimum or maximum? I mean, why require them to, when they're going to build a 3-story building that we're going to probably approve, but they're going to do a conditional use permit on top of the design review? It just doesn't make any sense to me personally.
That needs to be studied a little further. I don't know, it is just why it's 2.5.
Well,
versus
Charlie,
not
when he
3.
was here last time, when we went through this, he'd been here for, 20 years, 30 years? He was our city long-term planner. We've been with the city for over 20 years. And he did not know where the source of 2.5 stories came from. It just
We'll
got
check.
put in there.
We'll check with some architects and, what is the reason. If not,
Yeah.
make it easier. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, well,
can
that's what
change
I'm
it.
trying to do is, why make a applicant have to go through that extra process or for us to?
That's the whole idea, to make it easier.
Yeah, and, if we had a lot of this kind of thing going on, so we're really restricting them to 2 stories, is what we're saying. Unless they get a conditional use permit, it's in a PA, it's in a planned area development. Yes,
What's the height of a 3-story building?
Depends on the, depends on the situation. It's
The one we-
35.
the one we
2.5
approved
is
downtown was
35.
35.
40.
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
3 story is 40 feet.
40 feet.
But the one we approved downtown was, we kept it in the 35-foot
35,
level.
yeah.
That's 2.5.
No, we approved a 3-story building, maximum height of 35 feet.
Yeah, the apartments.
The condos downtown. That's what we approved.
Yeah,
But we
but
had to do
here they
that
are
ca-
saying maximum 2.5 story is not to exceed 35. So 2.5 is equal to 35.
Yeah, but they had to file a conditional use permit to get that 3 stories, because they were actually 3 stories. And not 2.5 as defined. And what I'm saying, if we're gonna make these modifications,
Right.
why don't we clarify that and change that, because that's what's gonna happen in Cottonwood. You know, maybe in Phoenix or somewhere else that makes sense, but we're still within the fire codes and everything else of the 40-foot limit, and we keep them at the 35 unless,
We
you know.
can check those further. I mean, we need to look at it, where it is coming from, and if it is not necessary, we'll change it.
All right, well,
Yeah.
so I'd sort of like to table this particular one till we can do that and
Yeah,
and get it done. It just doesn't make any sense just to,
25 feet, 35 feet, 40 feet, to me,
Right.
it's really confusing. I think we ought to just, like,
Yeah.
say it really the
But
way it should be.
I would be careful making changes so casually. These things might have, we have an architect here, so there might have some reasons behind it, so, and we've been having
I'm
these
not
things.
trying, in fact,
No,
I'm
no,
going
I'm
the
not
other
saying
way.
you, but
I don't want to
this-
be casual. I
No,
want to see a
let's
definition.
study that,
yeah, I
yeah.
think we need to research
It
this some
needs to be
more.
Research
clearly
that.
Why-
defined in
yeah.
language that we can all understand.
Sure, yeah.
You know, because I'm
And make
hearing
it
all these
easy for
different
everybody.
heights
Well,
about different things.
Yeah,
and-
well, the 40-foot, I think, is, if we were to agree to, let's get a 3-story building that's 36 feet high, 38 feet high. What they're saying in C here is, notwithstanding anything else, we are limited to giving a conditional use permit, or in a PAD to not more than 40. So we've got 5 feet to work with there as a maximum that we can approve, but that's only on a conditional use permit. They'd have to require that as part of the approval process in addition to their design review. So that's what that's about. And we've had cases where, I don't know, typically, Commissioner Harvey, you're an architect, 12-story in first story. I've seen a lot of buildings that are basically 12-story, 12 feet per story, or,
Yeah, usually, yeah,
yeah, so 36 feet would be,
yeah.
yeah. And they were in the 35, they met that 35 threshold on this particular building that we approved downtown. But that was not the problem, but there was a problem that it wasn't 2.5 stories. It was actually a 3rd story with condos on the 3rd floor. To me, I think we just need to research that, and I don't think there's a good reason for it particularly, but would you please research that? And I would personally like to see us recommend this be tabled till we can get clarification from wherever, since we never have been able to. This is the second time around. Vice Chairman, what do you think?
Yeah, this was probably the one I had the most questions about, especially the letter C. It just seemed so general, non-combustible, the 4-story. I think about the biggest building that we've had built in town recently, which is the hospital, so it would have been conditional use permit according to the language here for that, so I'm not sure I understand the logic.
Well, actually,
of-
this whole thing is coming from that C, and that C is very important. That's why I would tell tonight, if you table this, all that work is going away. And that C is so important because we had a project and still going on. And fire department is having problem, so legal department is involved too. So we are covering these things, and 2.5 stories versus 3, that's different item. We can deal with that later. This is what we need to fix
So
now.
what is it? I kind of feel like
Yeah,
you've
I'm
got something going on, but you're asking us to do something, but I
Well-
don't feel like we know
Well,
what
this is
we're
with the
doing it
building
for.
code that it has to be fireproof materials. We have a project, they want to build 4-story, but they don't want to use the material it's required. So
that?
They don't want to use non-combustible material.
I can't talk about the projects. So these are the quick fixes, like I said. But once we open these things, it is going to different directions. I understand there are more problems. But this whole idea for this change was that number C, or whatever, letter C, there to fix that situation.
But that makes me even more hesitant because I understand you can't tell us what that
I
project
told you,
is.
four-story
But
public building, and they're arguing to build it with combustible materials. And the building code says it has to be non-combustible.
Yeah, and what are we changing then?
yeah, if it already
Yeah.
says.
I don't understand this verbiage either.
If
If
it's,
it's
if you're saying right now it states that it has to be non-combustible, then what's the issue? Because I was understanding that we're trying to change it so it
Am I
says.
saying it backwards? Am I saying?
Well, yeah,
backwards?
you are
Maybe
right.
I'm saying backwards.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
It's in the code already, right?
or it's
no,
not.
they are.
Or it's not in the code. You
It's
say
in the
it's
building code, so we are putting it here too.
in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
But
Did I say it backwards? Maybe that's why. So
You-
it is,
you
it
said
has
it
to
was
be
in the code, so
non-combustible
it's-
material.
It's in the building code, but not the zoning ordinance, is what you're saying. You want to
Doesn't
put it in
make
the
sense,
building,
no?
in the zoning code as in addition to the building code.
Right, so we are clear.
All right.
from
Now,
the beginning.
the question I have is, I've been on this commission for 8 years, I guess. We've never approved a project that didn't comply with building code requirements by the city.
Again, we are getting into details, and you are looking at always your past experiences.
No, but I'm
This
just,
is coming from the legal department.
Yeah.
So this is a
I'd like to have
suggestion
Steve
we are
come and talk
bringing-
to us about
yeah,
this.
so we are bringing this to
all
you,
right.
it is
Yeah,
necessary. So
I think we need to have
Okay.
some additional discussion with Steve Horton here then, if it's a legal thing. I guess because any approval we've had for a new building is always, as a stipulation, required that they comply with the building code requirements that were created as of a certain date by the city. And we've never had a case where that's not, so if it's in the building code, and we approve this project with that stipulation, they couldn't go ahead and build a building without non-combustible. It wouldn't meet the city code. So if you want to get this through, I think we need to have Steve Horton come and explain why we need to put it in the, maybe it's for clarification purposes. But I've never seen a project come through this commission that's a new project or a building project that doesn't state as a stipulation that.
again,
Yes.
I might not be explaining the whole thing to you, and you are, the whole idea is this much, you are picking one thing, you are dwelling on
Right,
that.
right.
If you are not comfortable, table
no,
it. But
yeah.
again, this has been going on, we
No.
brought it to you with
Yes, I don't have any, I have real questions on it. Yes,
everybody's
Commissioner
input.
I recommend that we table it, but the next time we have a discussion, we have a member of the fire department
Yeah.
here to
And-
explain.
And our
The fire
city,
department has a reason for this.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
we should hear it.
oh, yes, I agree. And probably
If
the,
their equipment doesn't reach, you can't fight the fire. Right here.
yeah. Again, I think Steve Horton, this is legal language too, and this might be something we need to hear from him as well. And he can explain why the necessity to do this, or at least clarify it, and there's probably a very good reason for it. I have no problems with that. But I'm a little bit, the language and whatever, I think just for us to make sure if we're gonna go through with these, that we do it, and also for you to research the 2.5 stories as to why we're not saying 3 stories, and why we're limiting it to 2.5 stories. We could cover those issues.
I don't have an issue with the language, and I think this has to pass muster legally anyway before it comes to us. I think it's more the rationale, and Tom said, we know that there's the 4-story limitation, so that's understandable. I just don't understand the connection between, you said that tonight, you want to see, that's of importance that we pass that, but I don't know that it's, I understand specifically, I'm kind of with Bob here, where if that is part of our building code, a permit would not be issued.
It is not only, building code, so obviously it is needed here, that's why it
I
was
guess,
recommended.
so my question is this to standardize what's in the building code, what is in our code? I don't understand that part. So if it's in the building code, the city could simply say, we're not issuing a building code for this because you're not meeting the standard.
My answer is, I guess, again, fire department and legal department decided to put it here. Again, I cannot explain the reasoning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand are we just trying to marry these up so there's a standard across the board in terms of what's in our code or building code? So I have a better sense of that, because I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I don't need a legal clarification.
yeah. I
Chairman,
do,
I have
but,
a quick question. Is there a time duress on this? Is there an issue relative to timing?
But it's ongoing, there's ongoing project, but if you are not comfortable, let's just table it, because, Scott, these are Scott's projects, and he happens to be on vacation this week.
yeah,
He can
he's on
explain-
vacation this week, so.
He can explain that better next time.
Yeah. So I think our consensus seems to be that for several reasons, we maybe need to get some clarification from whoever as to where these came from, or like the 2.5-story kind of thing, or with the building code. And do we need to marry these up? And there might be very good reasons for this.
And also, I'm a little bit hesitant to get into details. It's not that.
Oh,
I
I
don't
know,
wanna-
I understand,
I
no.
have some answers.
No,
and-
disappointing me, and I understand
Yeah,
your,
yeah.
your reservation as far as discussing any proposed projects are still in the
Exactly,
infancy.
yeah.
That's not up, that's not on our agenda tonight. We're just looking at zoning changes, so
So do we want to table?
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So I move that we table ZO 18-009 amendment to section 404.h, general provisions.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Commissioner Dell, second that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you for bringing it to it, but I'm sure there's good reasoning behind it, but maybe we need to get Scott here. He's been the guy putting this all together
Yeah.
and whatever, and maybe he can give us some more background on that. Okay, next item, of course, is, do we have anything,
Yes, we have one item.
discussion items?
For the last couple of years, the bicycle committee has been putting together different standards, and their goal is to become a silver community as far as bicycle access. There's going to be a new bike rack down in front of Merkin Vineyards, Merkin Osteria. So this identifies the location. This identifies the location where it'll be. There's a rough diagram on there. It's sort of a little difficult to see exactly what it is. If you look in a little closer detail, there's an aerial and a front view. They're anticipating this being done by the welding group from Mingus High School. And so when they come back into school this fall, this will be something that they're placing in Old Town. This is just sort of for your information. It's one way to get this out to you. Let you know it's one of the steps the city is taking to promote and encourage bicycle as a means of transportation in the community, and working towards a higher standard of service for the bicycle community.
Yeah, we just approved recommendation for some changes for bicycles and racks.
Right.
So this was just sort of a FYI, something you really need to talk about or review. Ed was planning on being here, but he had something else.
Okay.
Yeah, they had an article in the newspaper about they want people to drive their bicycle to work.
Yeah. Okay, any questions on that? Anybody heard? Okay, for our information. We have no other any informational reports from the staff?
I've got a question, just on, you know, not last meeting, 2 meetings ago, I think you mentioned that we were gonna be doing some of these kind of administrative cleanups and stuff. One was the banners, that you were gonna address. Is that still something, or how?
Yeah, we, staff has been working on that. I've been working on that quite a bit. We're sending this all through the legal department with the Supreme Court decision going back a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
There is a lot of confusion over what you can restrict, what you can't, without getting into any details. So it is being reviewed by the city attorney right now. We don't have that back to bring that forward to you, but signs are a very touchy topic as far as, you know, in current legislation. And so that is something that we were hoping to have it on this agenda, didn't quite make it, so perhaps next meeting it will be.
I figured it had to be something like that.
Touchy.
It's, yeah.
So what are we gonna see, though? I mean, are we gonna see something that we're gonna discuss, or something that it has to go to council right away? Because, I mean, I'm confused about these banners. Some of them, one meeting was said that if you have nothing on it, it's just a flag, you can have it, but if it has writing on it, you can't. So anybody can put up all these flags with nothing on them, but
Again, this
you
is not
put
on
something
the
on
agenda.
it.
Yeah, right. we'll see.
Excuse me?
It's not an agenda item, we are getting into
Yeah.
details
Yeah,
of
that's-
these
yeah.
things.
Well, I'm just asking, what are we gonna see when it comes?
I don't know
Gonna
that
be
you
an
know
ordinance?
yet.
They're still working on it.
They're still working on
Is
it.
it gonna be an ordinance?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Excuse me.
It wouldn't be the official ordinance like council sees, but it would
Okay.
be similar to what you saw tonight, where we're proposing
Right.
certain
Part of the
language
code.
to be included or excluded from
Okay.
from the code.
Or if you guys like it, we can bring it as a discussion item so we can get your input and then make it ordinance.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought we were gonna do. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
And you're welcome to come to office anytime to get the details and,
Right,
or we can discuss those things.
right.
The other question I had was just on the hotel. Did that ever come before? It was the hotel that was the Motel 6 before over by?
Yeah, no, I talked to Scott about that. There's some language about
Yeah,
minimum, maximum,
it
difference
was part of the
between
renovation.
staff approval and what's a remodel and what is
Valley
an
Inn.
addition that requires
Yeah.
a design review.
I understood the internal workings, the stairwells and stuff, but the facade is like seems like an addition to the existing building, including an additional story, so I didn't know if I missed that somewhere, but it's on Main Street, it's a big project, and
Right.
so I was wondering if I missed it, or if,
You mean
why
the
it
one on
didn't,
the 260?
Minor
why
enough.
it didn't
260.
come, why it didn't come to us.
Yeah,
It
I
was
had
minor enough.
had the same thing. I talked to Scott just briefly. He had mentioned something, for it to rise above a simple remodel, which doesn't require us to have design review. It has to have so many square feet. He could probably answer that next meeting when we're here, because I had the same concerns. It looked, that second story is sort of like a false second
Yeah.
story, I think, or, they left the old roof line in there. I think it's just a facade kind of thing, but to give it the looks of a two-story, but he was saying that it didn't fall within those parameters.
I think it says anything under 900 square feet isn't,
Something like that,
Which was
yeah.
qualified for.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So-
Kentucky Fried Chicken didn't add anything onto it, and they had to come before us, so.
Yeah,
Again, from the past, so
Yeah,
it is
I
in the
don't know.
code. And if You guys want to see everything? Do you want us to bring you everything, or?
Well,
You wanna-
Something like
Yeah.
that,
Certain
something like
levels.
that, yeah, I would.
see, I question that in regard to what we just considered and approved for Oxendale. You know, they put their new addition onto there and required them to go through design review. Why aren't we requiring this? Because this looks like it was pretty substantial addition. The rest of the motel, they were just repainted and did it. But when they built that new building on the front office, it pops right out at you. And it just seemed to us, that, or to me personally, that maybe we should have seen that that particular one as a design review issue. But I know there's some limitations, and you meet certain parameters, you don't have to do that. Maybe we need to have that as a discussion item at the next meeting as to what classifies as simple remodel that staff would approve, as opposed to design review, which requires them to come before us for approval. I'm not clear totally on that myself at this
But
point.
my understanding is this commission wants to see almost everything.
Yeah, mostly.
So, I mean, it depends on the commissions, and some
Yeah.
cities, they do more staff level because they want to make it faster, and, but we got the message as staff, because we got so much calls from you guys. Next time, we'll bring it to you. Yeah.
You know, that just seemed to be quite a major change, and
Yeah, you're driving along and suddenly there's this huge two-story wall up there,
right next to McDonald's,
And-
the old Motel 6.
you know, and I'm going.
Right next to McDonald's.
Why didn't we see this?
Just north of McDonald's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I just, that to me just real close that we should,
Yeah. it
you
was
know,
close.
yeah, little minor remodels or whatever, I sort of seem sometimes like, what are we doing this for, you know?
Now, to be on the safe side, we'll bring it. But of course, this is money and time for the applicants.
Oh, I understand, no, I understand, we don't want to
Yeah.
prove frivolous things, I don't
Yeah.
think either of us want to do that, but if they're making quite a design change or whatever, most of those things I think we want to look at. We've discussed this with signs too, you know, that there are certain things you should be able to approve and without having to bring every little sign that's out there before us to change. We've got to have some limitation on that, but I think the same thing applies here. To me, it just stuck out, same with Vice Chairman, boom, you know, and, you know, that, whoa, and we haven't seen that. When are we seeing that? And that's when I asked the question, so maybe we get some little further clarification next month on some of those parameters, and maybe we can give you some better direction once we get that, okay? Yeah, once we get that, we can go forward in the future with those kind of things. Okay, any other?
I just want to make a clarifying statement.
Yeah.
Dead Horse is within the city. It's just it's exempt from our zoning.
Well,
Just to clarify, Dead Horse is
we
within
are
the
zoning
city.
people. I'm thinking zoning wise.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, yeah.
Dead Horse is within the city. It is exempt from our zoning.
I should finish my sentence. It's not
Okay.
in the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
It's,
don't, we
like
don't dictate them.
Mingus Union High School, same thing with
Right.
school districts. We have
Yeah.
the
Okay.
same thing, where they're a different government unit. You know, there's,
Yeah, just,
I understand that.
yeah.
I was like,
You could still do police work in there.
yeah, for you, you go there, but for us, we don't deal with them. That's how I was thinking. Okay.
Good. Okay, there being no other business, entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Say yes.
Second from Commissioner Hart. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.